This is Eleanor Voss at Still Point Institute, and today we are talking about something that almost nobody with any credibility will say out loud. There is a wave of women in their late 30s right now who have suddenly discovered that what they want more than anything is a serious relationship with a stable, committed man. They will tell you they have grown, they have done the work, they have finally figured out what matters. They are ready now in a way they were not before, and they want you to believe that this readiness is the product of genuine personal evolution. I'm going to show you why, in most cases, it is not. What changed for most of these women is not them. What changed is their options. And the man who cannot see the difference between authentic transformation and strategic repositioning is the man who will pay with his future for a decision he made based on a performance. Stay with me, because this is one of the most important conversations this channel will ever have. Not to condemn women, not to generate contempt, but to give you the honest map of what is actually happening so your choices come from clarity rather than hope. Because the hope of a woman who has decided she is finally ready is one of the most compelling and most dangerous emotional experiences a man can walk into without adequate preparation. My name is Eleanor Voss. This is Still Point Institute, and I am a woman telling you what women will not tell you themselves. Here is what actually shifts for a woman past 35 that rewires everything about how she approaches partnership. Fertility does not decline gradually, it collapses. At 35, egg viability begins dropping significantly. By 38%, natural conception odds reduce noticeably every 12 months. At 40, that biological window is closing in ways that can no longer be intellectually managed or emotionally deferred. Every woman understands this in her mind long before she allows herself to feel it. The culture around her spent her 20s and early 30s telling her there was no urgency. Focus on your career, accumulate experiences, develop yourself. Modern fertility treatment makes everything available whenever you want it. Motherhood can wait. That message was not entirely honest, and by the time the dishonesty of it becomes undeniable, the woman receiving it is in her late 30s watching her physician explain conception probabilities and chromosomal risk in language that is no longer abstract. She is watching friends burn through rounds of IVF at $20,000 each with no guarantees. She is seeing women in her circle confronting infertility they genuinely did not anticipate. So when she reaches out to you with warmth and availability and a new interest in building something real, you need to understand what is actually fueling that warmth. She is not simply reaching toward you because you became irresistible. She is reaching toward a solution to a problem that has been compounding for years while she made different choices. You are not just being invited into partnership. In many cases, you are being recruited to resolve a crisis that she created and that is now urgent in a way it was not before. Here's the second thing that shifts past 35 that most men never fully account for. Her position in the attention economy has changed completely. The pursuit that characterized her 20s has dried up in ways she did not anticipate and is not fully prepared to acknowledge. The dynamic, successful, attractive men who were competing for her attention at 28 are not competing for her attention at 38. They have redirected toward younger women. This is not cruelty. It is the predictable operation of attraction dynamics that do not rearrange themselves to be convenient or fair. So, at 37, she notices something unsettling. The caliber of incoming attention has changed. The men expressing genuine interest now are often men she would have dismissed without a second thought 5 years earlier. And you, the stable, decent, reliable man, who reached out at 31 and got minimal response because you did not deliver the excitement she was prioritizing at the time, are suddenly receiving warm replies. She is available. She is interested. She wants to get to know you. She is talking about how much she values character and stability now. The question you need to answer honestly before you commit anything is this: did you become more compelling, or did her more compelling options disappear? Because those are not the same thing. And somewhere in her psychology, even if she has not consciously named it, she understands the difference. That understanding, unacknowledged and unprocessed, becomes a low-grade resentment that will surface in the relationship in ways neither of you will be able to trace to its actual source. Now, I want to add something to this conversation. that the standard version of it almost never includes, something that requires a particular kind of clinical honesty. The impact of an extensive romantic history on a woman's capacity for lasting commitment is not simply about the number of partners. It is about what repeated short-term connection does to the psychological architecture of how a person bonds. Research on pair bonding and attachment consistently shows that people who have experienced many sequential relationships develop a particular cognitive pattern. Their minds wire toward evaluation rather than investment, toward scanning for alternatives rather than deepening present connection, toward the assumption that something better may exist elsewhere rather than the choice to build fully with what they have. This is not a moral judgment. It is a description of how repeated experience shapes expectation and habit. A woman who spent her 20s and early 30s in a pattern of connections that ended before they required genuine, sustained investment develops habits of mind that do not automatically disappear when she decides she is ready for something different. The habits persist. They show up as a difficulty with genuine emotional intimacy that has a rehearsed quality even when she is trying to be authentic. They show up as a tendency to compare, to keep one eye on the door even when she appears fully present. They show up as an inability to work through ordinary relationship friction because her previous experience taught her that friction is a signal to leave rather than an invitation to grow. By her late 30s, many women in this pattern are in therapeutic settings trying to address emotional struggles whose roots they cannot fully identify. Because rather than connecting their psychological state to the relationship choices they made over a decade, they attribute it to circumstances and difficult partners and cultural demands. The self-awareness that genuine transformation requires is precisely the self-awareness that is most resistant to development in the person who most needs it. This brings me to the most important distinction this video will make. There is a fundamental difference between a woman who commits in her early 20s because she has found someone she genuinely wants to build a life with, and a woman who pursues commitment in her late 30s because the conditions of her life have made commitment urgent in ways they were not before. The first commitment is chosen. The second commitment is calculated, not necessarily consciously, but calculated by the logic of biology and declining options, even when it does not feel that way to the person making it. The woman who genuinely wants you commits to you because you are who she wants. The woman who has decided she is ready commits to you because you are what is available and acceptable given where she is and what she needs right now. And the difference between being wanted and being acceptable is one of the most consequential differences a man can navigate in his own life. Because the woman who wanted you will invest in the marriage through difficulty. The woman who settled for you will resent the marriage precisely when it requires the most investment. That resentment has specific expressions that I want to name directly. She will make comparisons, not always explicit, but the comparisons will be there in the way she references men from her past with an energy that is distinctly different from how she engages with you. In the slight deflation when your life does not match the version she had imagined for herself. In the low-level dissatisfaction that cannot be resolved because the source of it is not anything you are doing wrong, but rather the gap between what she expected her life to look like and what it actually became. She will use intimacy as leverage. Not because desire motivated choosing you, but because the physical connection between you is one of the few areas where she retains control of the dynamic. When she feels dissatisfied or undervalued or simply in need of reasserting her position, the withdrawal of intimacy is the most available and most effective tool she has. This is not a strategy she consciously deployed. It is a pattern that develops from a relationship where genuine mutual desire was never the primary motivating factor. She will make you feel fortunate that she chose you, not through anything she says directly, through the accumulated weight of small signals that communicate her awareness of the compromise she made and her expectation that you should be grateful she made it in your direction. The dynamic inverts what a healthy relationship feels like. You are performing for approval rather than simply being present with someone who chose you because they genuinely wanted you. Let me now give you the specific behavioral markers that distinguish genuine transformation from strategic repositioning. Because this distinction is the entire point of this video, and I want to make it as practical as possible. The first marker is the timing of her change. Did her interest in stability and commitment emerge in her early 30s, when she still had abundant options and was genuinely choosing a direction? Or did it emerge conveniently past 35, when her options contracted? If the shift aligns with declining market position rather than an internal development that predates that decline, you are observing adaptation, not evolution. The second marker is how she accounts for her own history. Does she take genuine ownership of the choices she made and their consequences without deflection or blame? Or does she explain her past through the lens of terrible partners and cultural manipulation and circumstances beyond her control? Real transformation requires the kind of accountability that most people find genuinely uncomfortable. Performance requires victimhood and the externalization of responsibility. The third marker is consistency between her presentation to you and her behavior when she assumes you are not paying full attention. Does she maintain relationships with women whose values are entirely inconsistent with the partnership she is presenting to you? Does her digital presence still show evidence of validation seeking that contradicts the woman she is claiming to be? Does she maintain ambiguous connections with other men that she explains away rather than addresses clearly? These inconsistencies are not small details. They are the gap between performance and reality. The fourth marker is her response to reasonable pacing. A woman who has genuinely transformed and is ready for partnership because of internal development will accept a relationship timeline that allows both people to know each other well before making irreversible commitments. A woman who is in a strategic positioning mode will generate constant pressure around commitment speed because time is working against her, and a sustained relationship at a natural pace risks exposing the gap between her presentation and her reality. The fifth and most important marker is the quality of how she treats you compared to what previous men received from her. They received her at peak youth with genuine enthusiasm and authentic desire. You are receiving her after that peak with accumulated history, more rigid expectations, and a physical connection that is obligatory rather than expressive of genuine desire. The exchange you are being offered is fundamentally asymmetric. They received her best and gave the least. You are being asked to give the most while receiving considerably less than what she offered to men who never committed to her. I want to close this part of the conversation by saying something that the original version of this discussion almost always leaves out. Some women in this situation are genuinely different. The category I have been describing is real and widespread, but it is not universal. There are women past 35 who have done the actual work of self-examination, who have developed genuine accountability for their choices, who have built the emotional capacity for sustained real partnership through deliberate effort rather than circumstantial pressure. They exist. The question is how you tell the difference between the woman who has genuinely changed and the woman who has learned to perform change effectively enough to be convincing. The answer is time and consistency, and the specific quality of accountability she demonstrates when the relationship becomes difficult. Performance dissolves under sustained pressure. Authenticity holds. The woman who has genuinely transformed will be the same person after 2 years of real relationship friction as she was in the first month of presenting her best version. The woman who is performing will not. You deserve to be chosen, not selected, not accepted as viable given limited alternatives. Actually chosen by someone who wants you specifically and would choose you again if she had all the options in the world available to her. The man who enters this kind of relationship without understanding what he is actually walking into will spend years trying to earn something that was never available for earning, because the woman who settled for you cannot be made to want you through performance or provision or patience. The wanting was never there to be unlocked. It was never the foundation. Make your decisions from clarity, not from the hope that this time is different. Clarity is uncomfortable in the short term. It is infinitely less costly than the alternative. Drop a comment. Men, tell me whether you have encountered the I am ready now version of this and whether you recognized it at the time or only understood it in retrospect. Subscribe to Still Point Institute. Every week, we tell you the truth about what you are actually walking into before you have already walked in.